The soft hum of aircraft engines vibrated through the glass windows of JFK International Airport as Samantha Carter clutched her boarding pass tightly. She wasn't flying as a passenger today. She was stepping into her dream job as an international flight attendant. Her heart pounded with excitement, nerves tangled in her chest like a knot. Dressed in her freshly pressed airline uniform, navy blue with gold accents, she took a deep breath, absorbing the scent of coffee and jet fuel. "First time?" a voice beside her asked. Sam turned to see Lisa Evans, a fellow new recruit, grinning at her. Lisa had bright hazel eyes and a confident smile that made her seem like she had been flying forever. "Yeah," Sam admitted, exhaling slowly. "Feels unreal." Lisa nudged her playfully. "Trust me, by the time we finish training, you'll be navigating these airports in your sleep." The journey begins. Sam had always dreamt of this life. Growing up in a small town in Texas, she used to lie on the grass, watching airplanes carve white trails in the sky. She had imagined being inside one of them, traveling the world, meeting new people, and escaping the ordinary. After years of hard work, interviews, and intense training, she had finally earned her wings. Now she was about to experience her first real flight as part of the cabin crew. Their first official flight assignment was a short-haul trip from New York to Miami. A simple 2-hour journey, but for Sam, it felt like stepping into another universe. Lisa and Sam boarded the aircraft, greeted by Captain Reynolds, a seasoned pilot with streaks of silver in his hair and a voice like calm radio waves. "Welcome aboard, ladies." "First flight?" Lisa responded before Sam could. "For her, yes. For me, natural-born pro." Reynolds chuckled. "Well, keep your eyes open and your ears sharper. The sky is unpredictable, but that's what makes it exciting." As passengers boarded, Sam practiced the standard greeting she had rehearsed 100 times. "Good evening. Welcome aboard. Seat 12B, right this way." Everything seemed surreal. The overhead bins clicking shut, the safety announcements playing, the muffled voices of travelers settling into their seats. Then came the moment she had been waiting for: take off. Standing at the front, she felt the aircraft's engines roar to life. The vibrations beneath her feet sent an electric thrill up her spine. As the plane soared into the sky, the city lights below grew smaller, twinkling like fallen stars. Lisa whispered beside her, "First time seeing this from up here?" Sam nodded, her throat tight. "Welcome to the best view in the world," Lisa said with a wink. The flight went smoothly. Sam assisted passengers, served drinks, and handled minor requests. But the real challenge came when a nervous traveler gripped her arm mid-flight. "Miss, I don't feel well," the man stammered, his breathing erratic. Sam's training kicked in. She crouched beside him. "Sir, take slow breaths. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth." The passenger's fingers trembled. "I hate flying." Sam gave a reassuring smile. "Close your eyes. Imagine you're at home, in your favorite chair, with a warm cup of tea." After a few moments, the man's breathing steadied. "Thank you," he murmured. Lisa, watching from across the aisle, gave Sam a thumbs up. "Nice job, rookie." Sam felt a small spark of confidence. She was meant for this, a taste of adventure. After landing in Miami, the crew had a short layover. Lisa, always the adventurous one, convinced Sam to explore the city instead of resting. "Come on! What's the point of being a flight attendant if you don't make the most of your stops?" They walked along South Beach, feeling the ocean breeze. Sam couldn't believe it. This morning, she was in New York, and now she was in Florida. Lisa grinned. "Next stop, Paris, London, maybe Tokyo?" Sam laughed. "I can't wait." She felt invincible. The sky was her new home. Back at the hotel, the crew gathered at the lounge. That's when Daniel Parker walked in. Tall, with dark brown eyes and an easygoing smile, Daniel had been flying for a couple of years. He was charming without trying, and when he caught Sam's eye, she felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "So, you're the new recruit everyone's talking about," he teased, sitting across from her. "Oh? And what exactly are they saying?" Sam challenged, raising an eyebrow. "That you handled a nervous flyer like a pro on your first day." Lisa cut in. "She was amazing. Total natural." Daniel smiled. "Then I guess we're lucky to have you on board." The conversation flowed effortlessly, and for the first time, Sam felt like she truly belonged. That night, as Sam lay in bed, she couldn't stop smiling. Her first day had been better than she imagined. The thrill of takeoff, the passengers, the camaraderie of the crew, the adventure of exploring new places. She thought about Lisa's words. Next stop? Paris? London? Maybe Tokyo? She had her whole life ahead of her, flying across the world, living the dream. But fate had other plans, because soon everything would change. The sun was just beginning to set over John F. Kennedy International Airport, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple. Samantha Carter adjusted the gold pin on her uniform, feeling a surge of anticipation. Today was a big day. She was finally assigned to an international flight. Her first long-haul journey as a flight attendant. Destination? Paris? France? Lisa playfully nudged her shoulder. New York to Paris. Now, this is what being a flight attendant is all about. Sam grinned. "I still can't believe it. A few months ago, I was just dreaming about this, and now we're sipping espresso by the Eiffel Tower tomorrow morning." Lisa finished with a wink. Daniel walked up, holding a cup of coffee in one hand and his flight checklist in the other. "Excited for the big one, rookie?" Sam smirked. "More than you know." Captain Reynolds approached, giving the crew a nod. "All right, team, we're expecting a smooth flight tonight. Clear skies, light winds, and an on-time arrival. Let's make it a good one." The crew moved toward the Boeing 777, a massive aircraft gleaming under the airport lights. As they stepped inside, Sam took a deep breath. Tonight was going to be unforgettable. She was right, but not for the reason she expected. Cruising at 35,000 feet. The flight began like any other. Passengers settled into their seats, luggage was stored, and the usual pre-flight announcements were made. As the plane reached cruising altitude, Sam and Lisa moved through the cabin, attending to passengers. A little girl in seat 22A was scared of flying. Sam knelt beside her, whispering stories about how airplanes were like magic carpets. The girl giggled, gripping her teddy bear. An elderly man in business class requested hot tea. Lisa delivered it with a smile, sharing a joke that made him chuckle. Everything felt perfect. Then, at 2:14 a.m., it happened. Disaster strikes. A loud, violent explosion rattled the plane. The aircraft lurched sideways, and within seconds, oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. Passengers screamed. Sam grabbed a nearby seat to keep herself from falling. Her training kicked in. Stay calm. Stay focused. Lisa's eyes were wide with panic, but her voice was steady as she shouted instructions. "Everyone, secure your masks. Stay in your seats." The cabin lights flickered. The plane shook violently as Captain Reynolds' voice came over the PA system. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing an emergency. Please remain calm and follow crew instructions." Sam's hands trembled as she checked the overhead compartments. "Lisa, what's happening?" Lisa swallowed hard. I think we lost an engine." "Lost an engine?" Sam's stomach turned cold. Through the tiny windows, she could see flames trailing from the right wing. They were in serious trouble. Chaos in the cabin. Passengers panicked. Some screamed, others cried. A woman in first class clutched her baby, sobbing. A man in row 16 began hyperventilating. "We're going down! We're all going to die!" Sam rushed to his side, grabbing his shoulders. "Sir, look at me. Breathe. We are trained for this. The pilots are in control. But inside, even she wasn't sure. Lisa's voice came through the crew intercom. Brace positions, now! Sam barely had time to react before the plane suddenly dropped, a free fall that made her stomach twist. She grabbed the nearest seat, holding on for dear life as the aircraft plummeted. The emergency landing captain Reynolds' voice was strained but steady. Flight crew, prepare for emergency landing. Sam's heartbeat pounded in her ears as she locked eyes with Lisa. We're going to be okay, Lisa whispered. We have to be. The plane descended fast. The ground rushed toward them. Sam braced herself. And then, a violent crash. The world went black. Aftermath. Sam woke up to the smell of smoke. Her head throbbed. The cabin was filled with shouts, alarms, and the distant wail of sirens. She was alive. She struggled to unbuckle herself, her hands shaking. Around her, passengers groaned, dazed and injured. She looked for Lisa. Lisa was still strapped into her seat, eyes closed. Blood trickled from her forehead. Lisa! Sam's voice cracked as she reached for her friend, shaking her shoulder. Lisa didn't respond. Sam's heart pounded. Lisa! Wake up! Please! Daniel stumbled toward them, his uniform torn, his face streaked with ash. Sam, we have to get out, now! But Sam couldn't move. She clutched Lisa's hand. She's not waking up! Daniel's voice was pained. Sam, she's gone! The words hit like a blade to the chest. Number, this wasn't happening. Lisa was supposed to be with her, laughing, exploring the world, dreaming about Paris. But Lisa was gone. Tears blurred Sam's vision as she let out a broken scream. Outside, emergency crews rushed to the wreckage. Inside, Sam sat frozen, holding Lisa's hand, her entire world shattered. A new reality. The smell of antiseptic filled the air as Samantha Carter blinked against the harsh fluorescent lights of St. Vincent's Medical Center in New York. Her body ached, her head throbbed, but the pain in her chest, the unbearable weight of loss, was worse than any physical injury. Lisa was gone. The words kept repeating in her mind, over and over, like a cruel joke she couldn't escape. She shifted in bed, wincing as a dull pain spread across her ribs. Bruises lined her arms. A bandage was wrapped around her forehead. She had survived, but Lisa hadn't. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. A quiet knock at the door made her turn. Daniel stood there, his uniform replaced with a simple gray hoodie and jeans. He looked different, not the confident, charming flight attendant she had met. His eyes were hollow. Hey, he said softly, stepping inside. Sam swallowed the lump in her throat. Hey. Daniel hesitated before sitting beside her bed. How are you feeling? Sam let out a bitter laugh. I don't know. How was she supposed to feel? She had dreamed of flying since she was a child. It was supposed to be her freedom, her adventure, her escape. And now it felt like a prison. Daniel nodded slowly. He understood. He had been there. They had all been there. After a long silence, he finally said, The airline is covering all medical expenses. And Lisa's family. They're making arrangements. Sam flinched. Lisa's family. She thought of Lisa's mother, a sweet woman who had hugged her tightly when they first met. She thought of Lisa's little brother, who had called her the coolest big sister ever. And now they had to bury her. Sam turned away, her hands gripping the bedsheet so tightly her knuckles turned white. It should have been me. Daniel stiffened. Don't say that. She looked at him, eyes blazing with pain. Lisa wanted this life more than anything. She was always the strong one, the fearless one. And now she's gone, and I'm just... Her voice broke. Daniel reached out, placing a steady hand over hers. You're not alone, Sam. She wanted to believe him, but nothing felt real anymore. The investigation. 2 days later, the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, released an official statement. Engine failure. That's what had caused the accident. A malfunction in the right engine led to an explosion mid-flight. The pilots had done everything they could, but by the time they attempted an emergency landing, they had lost too much altitude. It wasn't pilot error. It wasn't terrorism. It was just a tragedy. The airline's CEO made a public statement, expressing sorrow and offering condolences to the families of those lost. Lisa's name was among them. Sam stared at the TV screen in her hospital room, feeling like she was floating outside of her body. Lisa's face flashed across the news, her bright, hazel eyes, her infectious smile. The best friend who had been with Sam through training, through first flights, through every terrifying and exciting moment. Now she was just a name on a list. Gone. Sam clenched her fists. It wasn't fair. Nothing about this was fair. Returning to the sky? Or not? A week later, Sam was discharged from the hospital. She returned to her small apartment in Queens, but it no longer felt like home. Lisa's absence was everywhere. The half-empty coffee cup she had left on the counter the morning of their flight. The jacket she had borrowed and forgotten to return. The sticky note on the fridge that read, "Pack your Paris outfit," with a little heart doodled next to it. Sam picked up the note, tracing the words with her fingers. Lisa had been so excited for Paris. Sam had been too. But now, the thought of flying again made her stomach turn. Her airline offered her time off, as much as she needed. But the real question was, would she ever step on a plane again? She didn't know. She wasn't sure she could. Lisa's funeral. The sky was gray on the day of Lisa's funeral. Sam stood among the mourners, wearing a black dress that felt too tight, too suffocating. Lisa's mother hugged her, her tears soaking into Sam's shoulder. "She loved you, you know," she whispered. "You were her sister." Sam's throat tightened. She was mine, too. The airline executives were there. Some of the crew members from the flight were, too. Captain Reynolds placed a firm hand on Sam's shoulder. "She wouldn't want you to stop flying," he said gently. Sam swallowed hard, but she couldn't answer. She just stared at Lisa's coffin, lowering into the ground. And in that moment, she knew she would never be the same. Lost in the fog, days blurred into weeks. Sam barely ate, barely spoke, barely left her apartment. Daniel checked in on her. "Come out with us," he'd say, "even just for coffee." But Sam refused. The sky felt like the enemy now. She had dreamed of it for so long, but now it had stolen Lisa. She couldn't forgive it. A letter that changed everything. One evening, after ignoring her phone for the 10th time that day, Sam heard a knock at her door. It was Lisa's little brother, Josh. He held out a small envelope. "Lisa wrote this for you," he said softly, "before your flight." Sam's hands trembled as she took it. When Josh left, she sat on her bed, staring at the letter for a long time before finally opening it. Lisa's handwriting was familiar, messy, but full of life. "Sam, by the time you read this, we'll probably be in Paris, stuffing our faces with croissants and making fun of Daniel for being too charming for his own good. But I just wanted to say this, in case I never get the chance. You were born for this life. Even if we don't get to fly together forever, promise me you won't stop. The world needs people like you, kind, brave, and ready to help others no matter what. So if you ever feel lost, just remember, the sky is still yours, and I'll always be there, flying with you. Love, Lisa." Sam pressed the letter to her chest. For the first time since the crash, she let herself break. And for the first time she wondered, maybe she could fly again. Not for herself, for Lisa. A life stuck on the ground 1 month. That's how long it had been since Flight 327 went down. since Sam had last stepped inside an airplane. Her airline had been under investigation for weeks, but with the FAA confirming it was an unavoidable mechanical failure, flights resumed. Most of the crew had returned to work, except for Sam. She was still grounded, not because the airline had suspended her. No, they had given her an open invitation to return whenever she was ready. But she wasn't. Her uniform still hung neatly in her closet. Her flight bag remained untouched. Lisa's letter sat on her nightstand. Sam had read it at least 100 times, yet every time she tried to picture herself walking down the jet bridge, her heart clenched. Every time she imagined hearing the safety briefing, her throat tightened. Every time she thought about stepping back into the sky, she felt like she couldn't breathe. Daniel's challenge. Daniel refused to let her stay locked away forever. One evening, he knocked on her apartment door with 2 cups of coffee and an ultimatum. "Come with me," he said, handing her a cup. Sam took a sip, suspicious. "Where?" Daniel smirked. "You'll see." An hour later, they arrived at JFK Airport. Not the terminals, not the departure gates, the crew lounge. Sam froze. "Daniel, I can't. You don't have to fly. Just sit with us." Inside, familiar faces turned toward her. Captain Reynolds, some of the other flight attendants from past trips, even a few new recruits. They welcomed her like she had never left. But Sam had left, and she wasn't sure she could ever come back. Daniel saw the hesitation in her eyes and leaned in. Just talk to them. It might help. So she did. And for the first time since the crash, she felt a flicker of something she hadn't in a long time. Belonging. Facing her fear. The next day, Daniel showed up again, this time with a bigger challenge. "Come with me to the simulator." Sam laughed bitterly. "No way." Daniel crossed his arms. "Just sit in the cockpit. No flying, no pressure. Just sit." Sam hesitated. Lisa's words echoed in her mind. "The sky is still yours." She swallowed hard. "Fine, but just for a second." The flight simulator was eerily realistic. The moment she stepped inside, her pulse quickened. The buttons, the dials, the faint scent of worn leather, it all felt too real. Memories crashed over her, the oxygen masks dropping, the screams, the fire. Her breathing shallowed. She turned to leave. Daniel grabbed her hand. "Breathe, Sam. Just breathe." His voice anchored her. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. And somehow, just for a moment, she felt steady. The decision. That night, she dreamed of Lisa. They were in Paris, sitting by the Seine, drinking coffee. Lisa's eyes sparkled as she said, "You can't stay on the ground forever, Sam." When Sam woke up, her decision was made. She called her supervisor. "I'm ready to fly again." The first flight back. It took 2 weeks of refresher training before she was assigned her first flight. Her hands trembled as she fastened her gold wings back onto her uniform. Walking through the airport, she felt the stares. Some recognized her, some whispered, but when she stepped onto the Boeing 787, something clicked. The familiar humming of the aircraft, the smell of coffee brewing in the galley, and then a little girl in seat 22A, clutching her teddy bear, nervous about flying. Sam knelt beside her. "You know," she said softly, "airplanes are kind of like magic carpets." The girl's eyes widened. "Really?" Sam smiled. "Really?" For the first time in months, she felt like herself again. As the plane took off, Sam looked out the window, up at the endless sky. She wasn't afraid anymore. Lisa had been right. The sky was still hers, and she would never take it for granted again. Chapt, a new beginning. Sam's first flight back had been a success. She had expected panic, regret, even the overwhelming urge to quit, but instead, she had felt something different. Peace. There were still moments when the past crept in. The flashbacks, the memories of Flight 327. But they no longer controlled her. She was flying again, and she was alive. After completing her first month back in the skies, she was offered a special assignment, a long-haul flight from New York to Tokyo. It was the kind of international route Lisa had dreamed of. Sam accepted immediately, but she had no idea. This flight would change everything. A familiar face. The flight was scheduled for 14 hours, with a full crew and over 300 passengers. Sam checked her flight manifest and saw a name that made her heart stop. Row 14, A. Joshua Carter, Lisa's little brother. Sam's hands trembled as she walked down the aisle. Josh sat by the window, staring out at the sky. When he noticed her, his eyes widened. "Sam?" She swallowed hard. "Hey, kiddo." He gave her a small, sad smile. "I didn't know you were on this flight." "I didn't know you were either." She hesitated. "Going to Tokyo for school?" Josh nodded. "Lisa always wanted to go, so I figured I'd do it for her." Sam's chest tightened. "She'd be so proud of you, Josh." Josh looked down at his hands. "She'd be proud of you too, you know, for flying again." Sam blinked away tears. "Yeah, I hope so." Mid-air emergency. 3 hours into the flight, everything was routine. Passengers settled in. Meals were served. The sky outside was a deep midnight blue. And then, the aircraft shook violently. Sam's stomach dropped. The fasten seatbelt sign flashed on, followed by the captain's voice over the PA. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated." Sam braced herself. She had trained for turbulence. She had flown through storms, but something felt off. The shaking intensified. Overhead, bins rattled. Passengers gripped their armrests. Then, a loud bang, followed by a sharp drop. Screams filled the cabin as the plane plunged downward. Sam barely had time to react before the oxygen masks deployed. Her heart pounded. This can't be happening again. A choice under pressure. Sam fought against the rising panic and forced herself to focus. She grabbed the intercom. "Everyone remain calm. Put on your oxygen masks and stay seated." She turned to Daniel, who was already securing the galley. They locked eyes. Not again. The plane lurched violently to the side. A baby cried. A woman prayed. Then, the captain's voice, strained but steady. "This is your captain speaking. We've lost control of our left engine. We are diverting to Anchorage for an emergency landing." Sam's pulse raced. Lisa had never made it to the emergency landing. Would she? Would they? Leading through the fear. Sam pushed past her fear and did what she had been trained to do. She moved row by row, helping passengers, reassuring them. Josh looked up at her, his eyes wide with fear. "We're going to be okay," she promised, gripping his hand. She had no idea if it was true, but she needed him to believe it. She needed herself to believe it. The landing. The minutes dragged on like eternity. The runway in Anchorage was cleared for their emergency approach. As the plane descended, smoke billowed from the left engine, the cabin filled with prayers, gasps, and quiet sobs. Sam took a deep breath. "Brace for impact!" The plane touched down. Hard. It skidded. Sparks flew from the failing engine. Sam's entire body tensed. And then, the plane stopped. Silence. And then, the cabin erupted into cheers and sobs of relief. Sam's knees nearly buckled. She had made it. They all had. The moment of truth as emergency crews surrounded the plane, Sam turned to Josh. He was shaking. She wrapped her arms around him. "You're safe. We're safe." Tears filled his eyes. "That was terrifying." Sam nodded. "Yeah, it was." Josh hesitated, then whispered, "Do you think Lisa was watching?" Sam smiled through her own tears. "I know she was." Final goodbye. The next morning, Sam stood on the tarmac, staring at the rising sun. For so long, the sky had been her biggest fear. But now, it felt like home again. She reached into her pocket and pulled out Lisa's letter one last time. "The sky is still yours?" Sam smiled softly. "Yeah, Lisa, it is." She took a deep breath, and with her heart lighter than it had been in a long time, she stepped onto her next flight,